Hi friends, welcome to day 2 of our Advent stitch along. Today we are going to be working on this front jacket portion on our Wiseman and then the French knot portions on each Wiseman, which is about right here on number 1, here on number 2, and this diagonal line here on number 3. So we're going to be using colors 3828, 3858, 3740, and 924. I know how to read numbers. See, I can't even speak. Okay, let's get stitching. Like I mentioned in the beginning, we're going to be working on this front detail of each of our Wiseman. We're using color 3828 and we're using 3 strands. Now I already have my needle ready, so I'm going to get stitching. We're going to be using a satin stitch, so what I'm going to do is come up right here and actually in the middle of that section right there. Let me zoom in a little bit more so you can see. So unlike the face where we started all the way to the right, I just pushed my needle down, where we started all the way to the right, for this section here, I'm starting right in the middle. I'm gonna get my needle that just got flung down. So starting right in the middle of that section, and I'm gonna stitch up one long stitch. I'm going to kind of use my needle to try and tuck it under the beard just a little bit, so that way we have less space between the two stitches. Okay, now I'm going to come to the left. And I'm actually going to share a hole at the top of that satin stitch, that very first one. So I'm going to try and get as close to that hole as possible, if not inside of it. Okay, now I'm going to go to the right and do the same thing. It took me a second. Okay, so again, I'm sharing that first initial hole. Okay, and you can kind of use your finger to flatten it a little bit if you need to. Now we're going to come and do the same thing, but on the bottom portion. I don't have to tie off in the back and start my needle again. You can just bring your needle straight down here on the bottom. So again, splitting it right in the middle. And if you've never stitched with me before, I like to call this method the straight share tuck method. We didn't do any tucking up here, but essentially it's making one straight line like we're doing here, and then when you come to the left and do the next stitch, you're sharing the hole, hence the straight share, and then the following stitch is a tuck, and we're going to actually do the tuck on this one. I'm just rocking this back a little bit, try and get any of those little twists out. Sometimes you can use your nail a little bit, pull it out and pull it back through. Sometimes it's a little more finicky than other times. Okay, so now I'm going to come to the left and I'm going to share that hole at the top. So straight share. This next one is going to be a tuck. So come again at the bottom. And instead of going all the way to the top and sharing that hole, I'm going to kind of tuck my needle right in there just a little bit so that it's kind of under those previous stitches. And we do this because the bottom is just slightly bigger than the top, and so obviously you can't just go straight up the whole time or else you'll run out of room for stitching. So now I'm going to come to the right of my original straight stitch right there. I'm going to again share the hole at the very top. So the very first stitch that I made counts as my straight stitch again. Do the share, and then the next one will be a tuck. Okay, so that is the front portion. I'm going to show you on these other two Wiseman, but I am going to fast forward it so that you don't have to sit and watch me stitch for too long. Okay, so the next thing we are going to move on to is the French knots here, here, and here. I'm going to start with our Wiseman on the left using color 3858, and we're actually using 4 strands. Let me show you this. And quick little side note, if I'm ever forgetting to tell you what color we're using or how many strands we're using, just refer back to your stitch guide. This is a super handy thing. If you have a kit, it's already printed for you. Just keep it next to you at all times when stitching. If you purchase a PDF, it wouldn't hurt to maybe print this out, just so that you can easily refer back to it. Okay, so French knots. We are going to be doing a French knot with 1 twist. If you've never done a French knot, you might be wondering, what do you mean 1 twist? What is a French knot? That sounds hard. It's not, I promise. Just give it some practice and you will do great. And it's really not many. And for those of you who have stitched with us before, just consider the fact that I was going to do the hills in French knots. And I didn't do that for y'all because I love y'all. But we are going to do French knots in this little spot. Now, I'm going to teach you how to do a French knot real fast. And I'm not going to show you necessarily where you should be putting this French knot. I'm just showing you right in the middle of our dude so that you can get a good look at what I'm doing before I start doing it in the exact location it needs to be. I hope that makes sense. All that to say, don't follow me exactly right this second. Just watch and learn. That sounds very like, I don't know, funny. So French knot, what we're gonna do is you're gonna come up straight through the back, pull your floss all the way through. You're gonna hold your floss with your left hand, or right hand if you're right-handed, but I meant with your right hand if you're left-handed, but I can't teach you that because I'm right-handed. Hold your floss with your left hand, with your needle in your right hand. You're gonna put your needle right here under your floss. I'm just kind of pushing it up against right now. Now, we are doing 1 twist in this video, or in this portion of the French knots. So I'm going to put my needle, thread is in my left hand, needle under, I'm gonna turn it, twist it 1 time. That is 1 twist. If I was asking you for 2 twists, we'd do 1, 2. If we're doing 3, I would go a 3rd time. But for this video, it's just 1 twist. So holding floss in left hand, needle is underneath it. Oops. I'm gonna do 1 twist, and then I'm gonna put I'm still holding this tight. That's the biggest thing with French knots, is you want to continue to hold your floss tight. I'm gonna put my needle right below my original hole, not in the same hole, just right below. Can you see where it's at? I'm trying to make sure I move it around just a little bit so you can see it right there. Okay, I'm continuing to hold it tight in this left hand, holding it tight, holding it tight. Now I'm pulling my floss all the way through. As it gets closer to the end, you can put your finger in this loop right here, and that kind of helps hold it tight. And then as you get closer to the bottom, you'll pull your finger out and then pull it down, and you have a French knot. Now, holding your floss tight is the biggest thing about doing French knots, because if you don't hold your floss tight enough, you're going to get a very loose knot and it's going to just look wonky. But if you hold it too tight, it might be too tight. I personally like a little bit of a tighter French knot, so I tend to hold my floss a little bit tighter. So kind of find what you like most. I'm going to do another French knot, and then I'll show you how you should be stitching it in this piece. I just wanted to kind of give you a little tutorial here because I didn't want to overwhelm you too much at one time. Okay, so again, holding floss, left hand, needle underneath it, twist 1 time, continue to hold it tight, put your needle right below where you came up, continue to hold tight in that left hand, pull with your right hand, pull, 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 pull. I'm switching to my finger holding it, pull, pull, pull. It's getting too close, pulling my finger out and pull through. And that's it. Now, The difficult thing about French knots is if you mess up, there's no good way to remove them. Let me show you. I'm sorry that this is a longer tutorial, but I know people get a little nervous about their French knots. If I was to do a French knot and accidentally do it too loosely, see if I can do it too loose. It's kind of hard to mess it up intentionally. Okay, so that is a bigger French knot. Maybe if I pull, it still pulls it a little. It's not a very good example, I'm sorry. If you make the French knot and it's too loose and you can't like do anything with it, what you can do is make a really tiny back stitch to kind of pin the knot down. So I would pull up and I'd say if this was too loose here, I'd kind of put my needle right into it and just kind of pin it down so it's not going to move anywhere. So that's an option if your knot has gotten too thick, too fluffy. Because, like I was just saying, there's no easy way to remove just one French knot. Like even now, I'm going to have to cut all these out. Boop. I have to cut them out individually. And it's a little bit of a pain. But it was worth it to teach y'all. Okay, I hope all that made sense. And if you're like, I know all of this, Sarah, then hopefully you've skipped this portion and you're just already stitching. Okay. Sorry, I'm trying to get all that floss out of the way. Okay, now let's stitch for real. Okay, so let me try and get that lighting better. There we go. I've already showed you how to do the French knot. I'm not going to show you that again, but I am going to show you how I fill in this space with the French knot. I personally like to start in this top left corner. We're filling in this little rectangle here. And I'll make my first French knot, and I'm coming just below, and I'm trying to stay on the inside of this rectangle. Ooh, I'm about to show you a mistake. Okay, we got it. We recovered. And I'm just going to fill in to the right. I'm just making rows. You don't want to make your second stitch too close, if you can see about where that one is, because the French knot is a little bit of a thicker stitch, and so you really don't need to bring them too close to one another, because they're going to fill in the space with their chunkiness. Okay, so I'm just going to show you this whole first row. And you could choose to fill this in a little bit differently if you want. If you look on my final piece, you will see that you can tell that this is a pattern. Like you can tell it's rows of French knots. If you wanted it, ooh, I'm getting tongue-tied. If you want it to look a little more organic, you can just randomly throw in those French knots there and fill in this space. That's totally fine. I like to have a little more direction, so until we get to the grass, and then you'll see that we have no direction whatsoever and it's just a free-for-all. Don't get scared. Okay, so as we get closer to this front jacket, depending on your French knots and how big they are, you might realize that, like I'll show you. So right now, it feels like I'm pretty close to this golden portion, the golden floss here, but really there's enough room that I could probably squeeze one more French knot. It's not absolutely necessary, and honestly, you could, once you finish stitching the whole Wiseman, you can say, okay, I think maybe I do want to fill in that spot. So you don't have to make that call now, but I'm going to go ahead and kind of use my finger to push that 38-28 to the side a little bit, and then make one more French knot right there. And if you feel like that French knot pushes that 38-28 too much to the right, you could honestly just kind of like lift this up a little bit and cover it just a tad, and it would be fine. Okay, so Now I'm going to come back down right below here and just do another row, another row, another row. When I come, I'm going to tie off when I'm done, grab my next floss, 924, do the exact same thing here on the bottom. Sorry, I'm messing you up. 3740 is here, the purple. This is why I tell y'all to look at the stitch guide in case I say something wrong. And here is 924. Okay, so the rest of this video is going to be sped up, and I'm just going to stitch a whole lot of French knots. Okay, friends, that's it for day 2. Come back tomorrow and we will start on our Wise Men's jackets.